welcome. This is part 3 of Engines of Reading and Northern. The series is based off the popular Engines of Amtrak videos made by Amtrak Guy 365. In previous videos, we went over the GP39s and the SD40s, which you should definitely watch. Today, though, we will be talking about the SD40-2s. We will talk about the history from beginning to present day of the 40-2s on Reading and Northern. In January of 1972, EMD introduced the SD40-2. The SD40-2 was part of the EMD's -2 series. The SD40-2s were built from 1972 through 1989. The SD40-2s had multiple variants along the way, including having a high hood and a large nose commonly known as a snoot nose, and were also made in the B units, but mostly for Burlington Northern. A B unit is pretty much the same thing as a normal unit, but doesn't feature a cab. The SD40-2s were made with 3,000 horsepower and came with a V16 engine. They had a starting tractive effort of 115,000 pounds and a continuous tractive effort of 82,100 pounds. They also had a fuel capacity of around 3,500 gallons. The SD40-2s were one of the EMD's best-selling locomotives, with many railroads buying them at the time. Some of the buyers included Norfolk and Western, Conrail, CSX, Burlington Northern, and Union Pacific. Union Pacific bought 686 units, some of them being snoot noses. Throughout their time on Union Pacific, they haven't really changed much besides the paint scheme. Around 2002, Reading and Northern bought 9 SD40-2s from Union Pacific. The units were numbered 3050 to 3058. The 940-2 was derived in two parts. The first half of the units arrived in 2002, with the units being 3050 to 3054. In 2004, we saw the second half of the order of 3055 and 3056. 3057 and 3058 arrived in later years. Some of the 40-2s from UP were previous railroads that went in the Union Pacific, like MKT, Missouri Pacific, and C&W. The last ex-UP SD40-2 was painted in 2012, and the reason being for that was because Reading and Northern wasn't really as successful as they were now, and money was tight. 2 of the 9 units came with a snoot nose, 3056 and 3058. In 1996, Burlington Northern sold off 6 SD40-2s to HLCX. After going to HLCX, they went to NS. NS 3327 was ex-Southern before the merger with Norfolk and Western and came from EMD with a high hood configuration, set up to run long hood forward. Running long hood forward is when the crew runs the locomotive in what looks to be reversed, with the long hood, or body of the locomotive, and forward. Or, as Rodney Kontorski thinks of it, putting up the hood of your car and driving down the road. In July of 2012, its cab was replaced with an Admiral cab and was set up to run short hood forward, making it easier for crews with better visibility. In 2020, Reading and Northern bought 11 SD40-2s from Norfolk Southern. They renumbered them 3059 to 3069. Some of the SD40-2s were from Conrail, Burlington Northern, and the Southern. All of Reading and Northern's SD40-2s that were painted in a green body, yellow plow, nose, lettering, and sill stripe. All of them except for 3062, which I will get into later in the video. Currently, as of today, there are still some 40-2s that have yet to get maintenance or paint on the Reading and Northern, and are currently sitting in a deadline in Penobscot. The units in the deadline are currently 3060, 3063, 3066, and 3067 at the time of this video. Recently, 3065 has been pulled out of the deadline and went to multiple shops to get looked at and get repairs and to be used in active service. Currently, 3061 is the only NS patched unit that is still in active service. 3059, on the other hand, is the only SD40-2 on Reading Northern with an Admiral cab. Currently today, Reading Northern is repainting a bunch of their old units, starting with the SD40-2s. So far, 4 units are in fresh paint. All the 40-2s from 2002 and 2004 haven't been repainted and are quite faded. So they had to get the cheaper paint that didn't last long, as the paint that they have now is much better. The paint that they have now is much better because it won't fade as easily as before. That's because when R&N painted their 40-2s for the first time, they weren't the company like they were now. Currently, as of now, there's 20 SD40-2s on Reading and Northern's roster, both in and out of service. Now, 3062 is a special locomotive. In 2023, Reading and Northern renumbered 3062 to 1983 and painted it into the BMR paint to remember the Blue Mountain and Reading. The Blue Mountain Reading was founded in 1983 and provided freight service and passenger service on the old Penske running track between South Hamburg and Temple. They started passenger operations in 1985 and used two steam engines to pull their trains, one of them being a 462 Pacific, that's ex-Gulf Mobile and Northern, and an ex-Reading Company 484 Northern number 2102. Both of these steam engines run on the Reading and Northern as we know today. The BM&R was the original company of the Reading and Northern that we know today. The BMR had multiple paint schemes, but the most remembered one was the CF7s with their purple body with the yellow lettering and accents. Reading and Northern 3062, or now 1983, was selected to be R&N's first heritage unit, wearing the original BM&R's paint scheme. The locomotive number was renumbered to 1983 to remember when the BM&R was founded. When you go out on Reading and Northern, you can expect to see at least a few SD40-2s since they're the most common unit on Reading and Northern. They're quite useful and reliable locomotives, and that can be proved because some are now getting to be 50 years old and are still being used. You can usually see them on heavy coal drags, fast freights, small locals, and everything in between. And in the 2000s, you could even see them doing passenger service here and there. The SD40-2s on Reading and Northern have certainly earned their keep and will continue to do that for years to come. Big thanks to Action Anthracite, Brickton Valley, and Blue Mountain Rail Films for helping with info and videos for this video. And big thanks to Railroad Archives for most of the images shown. Thanks for watching everyone, and make sure to subscribe and hit the like button, it really helps.